Hey guys, Alex Hoskins here with you, and with some new technology, we have a lot of questions. And we're going to address some of those questions today, all about the level. We're going to take you through the testing process, kind of how we do ball tests and where the level is going to fit in the line. And then we're going to throw out a couple different patterns and actually see how the level stacks up to a few of the benchmarks that have been in our line for a long time. Let's get started. All right, we're going to take you through a 3-ball test here, and the 3 balls that we've chosen is Pitch Black, Level, and IQ Tour. Pitch Black and IQ Tour are chosen because they've been in the line for a long time. Really good bowling balls for the fresh, really slow off of friction. They really provide you a lot of control. So we want to see how these 3 stack up against each other. I'm going to throw Pitch Black first. You guys are going to watch a couple of shots. I'm going to throw 10 shots total, roughly in the same place, and we're going to get an average ball path for that.
What's so funny about that?
All right, the first thing that you're going to notice is that we don't have any pins. And the big reason that we aren't using pins is, as a human and as a bowler, we see things that are happening with the pins and the pin action that makes us actually want to catch it a little bit more, maybe throw it a little bit slower. So we find that getting rid of the pins completely isolates any thoughts that the bowler, the instinctive bowler thoughts that you have, and it really lets you repeat the same shot over and over. When we are throwing these balls, we use a 10-shot average, and the big reason for that is we're human, right? We have some shots that go a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. We're trying to find that natural kind of average. We'll delete some of the shots if they're really bad, but as a ball tester, right now what I'm trying to do is hit 28 with the laydown, and I'm trying to hit about 17 at the arrows. Whatever happens past that point, that's all up to the ball. And when we actually ran the numbers here, we could see that that Pitch Black got out to around the 3 board as it got to the break point, and it made it all the way back to 15 in that distance before getting to the head pin. So now that we've completed the 10 shots with the Pitch Black, we're gonna run the lanes again and transition over to the level, stand in that same place and try and hit those same targets and see what differences that we see as the ball goes down the lane and goes through the pins. All right, now that we've finished oiling the lanes sat for a little while, we're gonna move on to throwing the level. Again, we're gonna try and get in that 28 zone with where our laydown is, about 17 at the arrows. We're going to see what differences that we see out of the level here.
What's so funny about that?
Proud dad moment.
Fix now?
I think.
All right, an important note with this ball testing is we did put each of these bowling balls through the surface factory with a brand new 1000 Abralon surface pad. The big reason for that is we want the exact same surface on each bowling ball. We changed the pad every single time so that we got as close as we possibly could to the exact surface for all 3 of the bowling balls here. The pattern that we're using for this testing is beaten path, which is 41 feet, and it does have some ratio. The big reason that we chose that is it's not as easy as a house shot, it's not as hard as a sport shot, so it's something that a lot of bowlers are going to experience at some point in their career. So we like to use that because it shows the differences between the bowling balls a little bit better. Now that we've finished up the 10 shots with the level, you can see that we got the bowling ball down the lane. We hit our targets pretty close through the front of the lane, but this time the ball only got out to 4 on average, and that's because it's starting to want to change direction a little bit earlier, and that also resulted in it getting up to about 18 and a half position at the head pin there. So what that means is overall it's creating more friction than the Pitch Black is, which is exactly what we want to see in a scenario like this, with the ball still maintaining being smooth and predictable and kind of slow off the end of the pattern. Now we're gonna run the lanes again. We're gonna do the exact same process with the IQ Tour and see what differences we see in the data. All right, we've got the lanes oiled. One last thing that we should talk about are the layouts on these 3 bowling balls. Same layout for all 3. We use a 4x4 by 1.5 layout. Big reason for that, all these balls don't have a lot of total differential. We really want those flare rings to kind of spread apart enough that we expose some fresh new cover stock to the lane and create a difference in ball motion. If you go a little bit too weak on a ball that doesn't have a lot of total diff, the ball piles in the same part of the lane, we don't create the friction that we want. So 4x4 by 1.5 on all these. I'm gonna throw the IQ Tour here, same lay down, same target at the arrows. We're gonna see what differences we see on the lane.
What's so funny about that?
All right, the 10 shots with the IQ Tour, you can see those laydowns, launch angles, everything's pretty close. But look at that break point position. You can see it's actually moved into around 5 now. So it's harder, it's getting harder for this ball to go across the traffic. It's wanting to create more friction, get offline faster. And you can see that actually gets it to about 22, 22.5 position at the head pin on average through those 10 shots. So you can see that level fits right in between 2 of our staples, the pitch black and the IQ Tour that have been in the line for so long. And it really bridges the gap for when there's too much friction down lane for reactive to roll really well, but maybe there's a little bit too much oil in the front of the lane or too much oil down lane that urethane just doesn't quite hook enough. So now you've seen purely the testing process, no pins, literally just trying to hit the same spot. It's great to have pure data, but here's the thing. As bowlers, we're all throwing the balls and making decisions based on what we see with the pin carry and how the ball's rolling off of friction. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick 2 patterns, something a little shorter, maybe a little bit harder that there's a lot of friction down lane. We're gonna see how well Level will blend that friction down lane and how repeatable it is from shot to shot. Then we're gonna oil with something a little bit longer, maybe a little bit higher ratio, something more like a house shot that you might see at your local league every week that you're bowling. And we're gonna see how it blends out that over under or that high ratio cliff that you can see kind of show up as a league night progresses. So let's oil the lanes and see what happens. It shows a 38-foot pattern that's about 2 to 1. So there's gonna be quite a bit of that friction out kind of closer to the gutter, 5 and out. So generally, when that's the case, lots of friction down lane, quite a bit of free hook to the right. Urethane's kind of gonna be in play for a lot of different styles because they're trying to control that down lane motion. So I'm gonna start with the pitch black, somewhere around maybe between 2nd and 3rd arrow or so. My speed's a little bit slower, so I still get forced a little further left than some people, but let's see what the pitch black looks like kind of as a standard line and then see where we have to move with the other 2 balls in order to strike. All right, you can see I'm pretty comfortable with the pitch black. I have some miss room to the left and a little bit to the right. What I like, and especially for my style, being a little bit more on the rev dominant side since my speed is slower, is I want control down lane. And when I've got 38 feet out there and there's 22 feet of dry back end, those shots that miss to the left a little bit, they need to push a little bit more. And that's what urethane gives me in that situation. I feel like there's still hook to the right, but I can get some blend as the ball goes up the lane. Very smooth and predictable. That's what everybody's looking for, right? So now we're gonna move on to level. I'm gonna have to move my feet a little bit because level absorbs oil a lot faster. It's gonna wanna see the lane a lot more. It's not gonna carry the oil down the lane nearly as much as pitch black will. So I'm gonna throw level a couple of shots and let's see where those end up going. with level, you can see more overall hook. Still smooth and predictable down lane, but quite a bit more in the front of the lane, so my feet had to get a little bit more left, had to open my angles up a little bit more, but I didn't feel like I was forced so far left that I kind of have to pitch it to that spot exactly perfect, closer to the gutter. It gets kind of uncomfortable when you have to move left and throw it really hard at the gutter because there's so much friction down lane. And plus, the more left you move on 38 feet or anything generally that's shorter, you're getting into the flatter part of the pattern, which makes it a little bit more difficult. Now, this level does absorb oil quickly, much quicker than the pitch black, but it is not our fastest absorbing cover. And what that does is it actually helps with carry down. So you're not seeing as much carry down with the level as you would a pitch black. And you see that surface profile stay a little bit longer, which allows you to stay in that a little bit longer. Where urethane traditionally, when you start moving left and you have to give it away, doesn't want to see the lane quite the right way, gets harder to get the ball through the pins. So that's where the level's a good step off of that urethane ball. From there, we're going to go to what would be kind of considered a very benchmark and has been considered a benchmark reactive for a lot of years, IQ Tour. Still slow off the end of the pattern, but let's see how well it blends out this 38-foot pattern and how far left I end up having to get. All right, you could really see it there. I feel like I have absolutely no miss room if I kind of get the ball shallow or get the ball going up the lane a little bit. All that dry back end, the ball wants to just take off significantly harder, even though the ball only has in the 20-30 total differential. I feel like I really have to get my angles open and throw it at the gutter hard in order for it to feel like there's any hold. But at the same time, it's getting so far away from the head pin that it's getting very hard for the ball to get back through and go through the pins the right way. So definitely not what I would be looking for on the fresh, at least, for this particular pattern. When you start with urethane and you have that good look and then all that surface starts to blow up the front of the lane and you have to move left, at some point it stops hitting and you have to go to reactive. There's a gap there between the urethane and the reactive that it gets kind of difficult to manage sometimes. We always call it managing that transition from urethane to reactive. Reactive can still be too sideways sometimes, and urethane's not giving you enough, so you're kind of stuck in the 190 zone. It's very hard to pair doubles together. That's where something like the level is going to give you something in between that, where you feel like you still have the control of the urethane, but you have faster oil absorption, you have more repeatability and continuation off the end of the pattern that you see with traditional reactives. So it's going to be a good ball to bridge the gap between those two. But right now, I think I have the best overall look with being able to go straighter and move a little bit left with the level. Pitch black allows me to stay straighter, but once I move a little bit further left, I'm going to start losing that pin carry a little bit, and it's just not ready for IQ Tour yet because I'm forced way too far left and there's not enough lines gone through the lane to be able to get that ball to slow down in the middle part of the lane, which is the most important for ball motion. So let's re-oil again. We're going to go on the longer side this time and see, now that we maybe have a little less friction down lane, what are each of these balls going to do and how are they going to interact with how they come off the end of the pattern. So we're going to oil with something a little bit longer and we'll see what happens. All right, we just got done putting out 44 feet, about 10 to 1. So there's going to be quite a bit of a cliff out there, a lot of friction to the right, a lot of hold in the middle of the lane. So traditionally for somebody with my style where my speed's a little slower and I have to get forced left, it's never really good to throw it into the cliff. We like to kind of try and stay parallel to the cliff to make it a little bit smoother as it reacts to the friction to the right, and your angle's not really open if you miss up the lane a little bit. So what I'm going to do is start with the IQ Tour, somewhere between maybe third and fourth arrow or so. I know that sounds pretty far left, but again, my speed is pretty slow. We'll see if that line looks pretty good, and then we'll compare the other two balls and kind of see where we have to move around to find the best spot to strike. you can see already a lot less hook down lane, and my moves and my launch angles are much more parallel with the lane. Again, my speed is a little bit slower, so I'm still probably launching it a little bit more to the right than most people are used to, but that's just because my speed's so slow and my ball has enough time to hook as it goes down lane. You can see IQ Tour still pretty blended, gives me a good amount of shape off the end of the pattern, but I am still forced a little bit further away from where that cliff is. So if I get one going to the right a little bit fast, it might kind of bounce off that friction too much. If I get into the pattern a little bit too long, there's 44 feet and it's 10-to-1. There's a lot of volume in there, so if my angle's kind of shallow and away from it, I get that what we call long left, and it gets really hard to get the ball through the pins. So we're gonna transition and move over to the level. I'm probably gonna have to scoot my feet a little bit to the right, much higher RG part. It's gonna wanna kind of stay on line a little bit longer. I'm not gonna feel as much of that friction in the front, but with that RPM cover, I'm still gonna see a smoother and more predictable shape off the end of the pattern. And since it absorbs oil much faster than a pitch black, but not quite as fast as some of our really strong reactive balls, we're gonna eliminate some of that carry down, which makes it really nice on league night, especially when you have, like I said, 10-to-1, a lot of oil in the middle of the lane. We don't want all that oil getting even further down lane and pronouncing that cliff in the middle of the lane even worse than it was before. So I'm gonna bump a little bit right, try the level, see kind of what I can get as far as friction to the right and hold to the left. And let's see how good it looks. All right, so you can see now I'm allowed to stay more to the right. This actually gives me more room for error both directions. I'm more on top of that ratio of the pattern like we were talking about. So those misses that go to the right a little bit, they're not really steep into it. So it doesn't want to change direction very violently off of it. And if I get it going up the lane a little bit, my angles are so shallow that I'm already on top of the head pin to begin with. This is exactly what I want to see when I'm looking for good ball reaction for my particular style on this pattern, because I'm able to stay closer to where that miss room is, and it maximizes the amount of miss room. That's what we're all looking for as bowlers, right? We're trying to find the most room for error in matching up the ball to our style and the pattern that's out there. So we'll go one more step down. We'll go to the pitch black. Remember, this is a true urethane ball. It's gonna force me probably even further to the right, because now we have 44 feet of oil down the lane. Ball's not meant to hook a lot off the end of the pattern. It uses a lot of its hook early and gets smooth and predictable off the end of the pattern. The issue that I think I'm gonna run into here is I have to get so close to the edge of that pattern that I'm gonna feel like it either hooks as soon as it touches the lane, and then if I move a little bit left, I think it's not gonna wanna see it going around the corner, because there's so much, there's 10 times the amount of volume inside of the pattern compared to the outside of the pattern. So I'm gonna move around a couple of spots with the pitch black, and let's see what we end up looking like. Once again, you could see very smooth and predictable, but you could kind of see what I was running into. I'd go a little bit to the right, ball would kind of get offline a little bit faster than what I'd hoped for, and then as I moved left, it felt like there was either hook here or hook, no hook, as the ball went all the way down the lane. There's a very defined ratio spot that it feels like, I just feel like I don't know what my ball's gonna do, and that's one of the hardest spots to be in as a bowler. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got is your ball has to find friction. You need to know where the friction is and work off of it. And if you feel like you have friction in one spot and you move just a little bit and the ball has absolutely no friction at all, you're probably not throwing the right bowling ball, or you're not in the right part of the lane with that particular bowling ball. And I tried a couple of different spots with pitch black, and you can just see it's not really designed for those longer and more higher ratio type volume patterns. It's much more for flatter, a little bit shorter, harder patterns that have more volume through the front of the lane that make you need that kind of blend off the end of the pattern. So you can see level kind of falls somewhere in the middle of those two. IQ Tour gave me a good look, but still kind of forced me left. Pitch black was just wrong from too far to the right, just really hard to know what it was gonna do. Level gave me kind of something in between those where I felt like I could bump up next to that ratio, but still get it right and left and have it hook correctly in both directions. All right guys, that wraps up this level comparison video comparing the level to two of our benchmark bowling balls that have been in the line for a long time. Now just to recap, remember that the level has a very high RG and low differential core, so you're gonna wanna tend to drill these on the stronger side as opposed to the weaker side to make sure that you get those flare rings to spread apart enough to create some friction. Even if you're just bowling on a house shot, or if you have a little bit lower rev rate, keep in mind that we need these to be a little bit on the stronger side to really blend out and match up to the design intent of the bowling ball. The level features a brand new RPM regenerative polymer matrix cover stock. Now this is a pillar, brand new cover stock for Storm. Some examples of previous pillars in the past, R2S. You saw that today on the IQ Tour. That was a very clean, more snappy type change in direction cover stock. We have the control cover, urethane cover stock that's on the pitch black. That's much smoother, much earlier, predictable, doesn't absorb oil, but carries oil down the lane a lot more. This new RPM regenerative polymer matrix cover stock fits somewhere in between those. You get kind of the benefits of both worlds there. You get a little bit of that smooth, predictable, slow type reaction that you're looking for when that ratio is really high or when there's a lot of hook down lane, but you also get the continuation and harder change in direction through the pins that kind of goes away once urethane gets down the lane too much and carries some of that oil down the lane. The level is the first ball in the SPI Lab series. Now this is a series of balls that is exclusive to specific, very catered to ball reaction. We're trying to fit these in with a very specific purpose, and we're sparing no expense at what we have to do in order to accomplish that. We know that all balls are made in the lab, but these bowling balls are very specific with their design intent and what we have to do to accomplish that. So be sure to go out to your local Storm VIP Pro Shop. This ball comes out on January 17th. I think you're gonna be really excited with the ball motion that you're able to create with this new level, the first ball in the SPI Lab series.